When somebody has a problem that you know how to solve and you're confident that you can help that person, you're doing them a disservice if you don't learn how to communicate effectively and how to sell them on your service.
Sales is that. It is belief in a story. The difference between you purchasing somebody's product because it's linked to an emotion and a service, or whether or not someone is just literally trying to make a sale. That.
People don't remember what you say. They remember how you made them feel. When you're just listening, people will remember that, like that you actually care. What's going on, STR Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Short-Term Rental Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Mike Shogren, here as always with my main man and brother from another mother, Mr. Emmanuel Pani. What's up, E?
My brother. So good to see you. I had such a good time recording the show. But before we talk about that, just excited, man. Like the year is off to a good start. Really holding standards really strong. We were talking about earlier, just there's a couple of things that I know I need to dial in. But again, without judgment, right? Like I am looking at my schedule. Have new things that I care a lot about. A lot of it has to do with STR secrets and how we're growing the business and mastering sales. So there's new things that have shifted in. And some of my old stuff that was really dialed isn't right now. And so it's an understanding of like, as you're adjusting, it's a game of like, kind of like refining that new balance really, right? And so that's what I'm focusing on. But again, it's now the 15th, 16th of January. And so if you listen to this and you listen to our end of the year show, now is usually the time that people start kind of falling off the wagon, right? And so
time this airs, it'll probably be closer to February. So now's really the time where stuff starts falling off.
You know what I'm saying? So now if you're listening to this and some of the things are not as dialed in as you want them to be, it's the time to be really inquisitive and really curious. Another thing that I'm kind of bringing into my life a lot lately is just curiosity around like, how am I feeling about certain things? And understanding, okay, like, why is this happening? Right? Like, why? Curious, like not judging, just like curious. Being like, other than that, we have our first boardroom event of the year, February 3rd to the 7th in Universal, which I'm super stoked for. New format. Yeah, new format. Some good friends coming to speak. And just a new format where we added some play in the middle of it, which is going to be so fun. So I'm super stoked.
A lot of good stuff going on, man. A lot of good stuff. But this episode, I'm excited to intro Kim Fitzpatrick. So we've known Kim for a little while. We're in a different mastermind together. She's just a total BA. Like she crushes it. This one, we really go deep on sales, leadership, and personal development. She's not in the short-term rental space, but she's an absolute savage. We're talking about a $100 million entrepreneur. She's been coached by Brendan Bouchard for the last 17 years. She's got an extensive background in a lot of different industries. And today was just a masterclass on those three things: sales, leadership, and really elevating yourself into that leadership seat. It was so good. So without further ado, let's get into this episode with Kim Fitzpatrick.
Hi, Kim.
Hello, E. How are you?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm amazing. I was excited about this.
Well, you got more excited once you find out that we're not going to ask you to talk about Airbnbs. So that's a good start.
I did. I will be honest. I was thinking about that. This show is really, really incredible. And I hope I can add some amazing value, but I have no expertise other than being a tenant of an Airbnb.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. So you've had quite a life, expanding across quite a bit of things. So why don't you just give our listeners a little bit of a background as to what does Kim do now and where does she come from and what's life been?
That's a loaded question, but I'm so honored to be here. Thank you. Hi, my name is Kim Fitzpatrick. I am a executive life, leadership, and business coach. I am a gerontologist by designation. So what I mean by that is I am also someone who loves aging and longevity, and I worked for over 15 years in the field of senior living, helping really to champion the quality of lives for all seniors. About 10 years into that career, I realized that the higher I went up the ladder of VP, C-suite, and moving myself out of the actual service, I found myself really depleted in energy and in excitement and in passion, because I became more of someone that was more into policies and procedures versus into impact and how to really make real change. So for me, I really decided that I wanted to get back to my roots, which was getting back into wellness and helping people age well, but also have a passion for leadership, service excellence, and culture change. And that was also something that I did a lot of working in the senior world. For anybody that's experienced senior living, you know that it is not the easiest place to work. It certainly is a second paycheck. It certainly wasn't, I didn't go there to get rich, but I went there because I knew that I had an assignment to make real impact. And as I started to move out of the corporate world from senior living and transition into my world, that has iterated so much too. For a while, I worked in direct sales. I was responsible for over $100 million in sales for our company that we previously worked with, and leading a team of 10,000 people globally. And I started 2 years ago with the pursuit of my own designation in the International Coaching Federation as a ICF certified coach, as I really wanted to continue to broaden my leadership and my skills as a coach. And I have then since built, in the 10 years, I've hosted retreats and masterminds, and now I'm really just going all in on transformational leadership and coaching and thought leadership, and I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with helping people be their best version. As I figure out who I am in my best version too. So we're growing together.
Absolutely. And I think that is the key part. I think Mike and I are big advocates of that. We're always learning, always building. Our self-image is always under construction, and we're always like tweaking it, improving it. And I love just your energy. That's always been my first thing. You and I met at an event in Vegas. Well, it feels like a lifetime ago. And I was like, I saw her across the room. I'm like, me and Kim are going to be friends by the end of this. And so it was.
That's true.
Before we get into the leadership questions, I didn't know about your involvement in such a huge sales organization. And we talk a lot about sales. And for me, sales is really like my area of focus for this next couple of years is really mastering the concept of sales and how to facilitate the desire of sales. And I think anybody that starts in their entrepreneurship journey, you're always going to have to sell yourself to your team, to your owners, to whatever it is. And so with leading such a big team and so much revenue, what are some of your hacks to become a great saleswoman or a great salesman?
I love this question so much. So first of all, I shimmied in my seat. I don't know that anyone noticed that. I was like, bring it on. Like, this is the thing. I believe that sales is sexy. I believe that sales is directly results in service. And, that is for me, I am a servant leader at its core. And the more that I can serve, the more that I can impact, the more that I can scale, and the more that you're selling. And I think for a lot of people, they don't understand that selling is not scary, but people have this, maybe it's a connection with selling that it's icky or dirty or wrong or, because of their past experience. And I believe we can do sales differently. I believe that we can do sales where you, the person, you're your niche and you're the reason why someone is coming and investing in you. I've had the honor of building also my own business and brand that is a multi-7-figure business. And it was rooted in story and, it's rooted in personal legacy and it's rooted in grief as well. And, I built a business called Legacy by Kim that was founded for my mom who passed away I was 11 months old, and she chose me to give birth to. She had cancer and she made a decision to keep me. And I know that she went on, but she left me here. And for a long time, I was trying to figure out where I fit and how I fit. And I was bold, and I'm a bit of a golden retriever. He talks about my energy, like you can't mask this. But I knew that if I could build my business based on my own roots and my authenticity and what I believe in, and I knew that I could honor my mom in the process, I knew that I could change lives. And the reason I did that was by giving someone an anchor to understand that they are bigger than themselves and they're bigger than their story. And, we have to continue to lead on that. And sales is that. It is belief in a story. You could think about anyone's brand story. You think about, the difference between you purchasing somebody's product because it's linked to an emotion and a service, or whether or not someone is just literally trying to make a sale. You know that. You know that in a conversation. So when you can link your reason why you love what you do and your reason why you're going in there, that's the greatest hack you can find. It's here. And no one can teach you that. That has to be something you decide to embody and adopt and run with.
Completely agree, because this was something that I struggled with at the beginning. You know, I was a CPA for 10 years, so selling just felt terrifying and dirty to me
Right.
until a mentor of mine reframed it of when somebody has a problem that you know how to solve and you're confident that you can help that person, you're doing them a disservice if you don't learn how to communicate effectively and how to sell them on your service. So that reframe of if they don't buy from me, they're going to buy from somebody else. And I know I can deliver a better product. So it's my job to help them make the decision that, one, what is the problem that you're trying to solve and why do you want to solve it? And here's how I can help you. And here's why I'm confident that I can help you. Keep it so simple at that point. And you believe in what you're doing. You're not just trying to make a quick buck. People feel that, to your point.
I
And then
totally.
it's not just selling. It's like, I have a solution that will work for you.
Yeah.
Here's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Simple.
The other thing I love about that too, and I actually learned this from one of my mentors, Brendan Bouchard, he said, I have a better way. And that's one of the things he loves to say, right? And it's to your point, Michael, right? It's about, why would someone choose your property over someone else's? Well, I've got a better way. It's like, why would someone choose my product, whether it be journal, whatever that was? It's a better way. And here's why, because there's this like intrinsic connection and human relationship in the sales process too. People buy from people, right? You earn through people, not just through product.
I have a better way. It's such a beautiful way of like helping people reframe. Because again, I think one of the big things that you face in sales is just dealing with objections, right? It's a natural thing. And the moment you realize that those are coming, and they're always going to come, anxiety for me at least goes away. And then is in learning, we're both blessed to know Dave Conway and seeing him handle calls. It's very interesting because his certainty kind of sips across. And when he gives people like prices, it's like, hey, this is how much it is. And it's like, that's expensive. It's like, no, it's not. And you're like, well, it is for me. It's like, maybe for now. And he's so natural with it that it takes away all of your objections because you're like, for me, objections kind of persist when you resist them. So when you try to resist the person and their objections, when they remain, right? So $100 million in sales, then this passion for leadership, name drop Brendan Bouchard, which is not a small name in the leadership space, right? And I know you from personal experience. I know stories that you've shared with me. You got to be really close to him and just really see him be himself. What are some of the main kind of things that he has influenced you with when it comes to leadership?
It's so interesting when you started talking about Dave. I feel for me, Brendan's been an arc in my story. He's been a mentor in my story for 17 years. And he's only a few years older than me. So he looks at me and he's like, what? Like, it was his first book, right? My uncle Paul, he is an amazing life coach. And he really was the reason I got into all of this self-development in the first place. I'll never forget it. I was 8 years old and I like creeped down the stairs at I was having a sleepover at his house. And he had this like wool blanket over his head and smoke coming up, which I now learned is like that sage or the different variables. And he was meditating. And I remember being like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm meditating. Come sit with me. And I was like, this rambunctious 8-year-old that was like trying to be still and silent and not interrupt him. But that was I'll never forget that. And so from there, my uncle really was the one who was like inserting, Wayne Dyer's tapes and Robin Sharma and, different types of, and cassette tapes. That's another reason how old I am. And I'd like put it in my Neon, my first car, and I'd listen to all my tapes. And then he gave me Brendan Bouchard's first book. And, one of the things that really led for me was his ability and way to be so human-centered. So as I was starting to learn this, I was very young as a manager in senior living. I was so fortunate to grow up in a culture in senior living where they believed in personal growth and development and they wanted to encourage that. And Brendan Bouchard was one of the ones that we used as our book club. Like he was just part of my life. I've spoken in stadiums and on stages in different ways. And Brendan and I, he came off the stage, high-fived me, and I went on out. And we developed a beautiful relationship based on, him getting to know me. But first, it was from this really humble place. It was about 7 years ago. Brendan's got his coat over his, his dry cleaning over his shoulder. He's with his wife, Denise. He's running out. I felt like 8 years ago, I felt like I was a baby in my space. And I ran after him and I stopped him and I said, Brendan, like, you've helped me change my life. You have completely changed the direct trajectory of where I could have been because you gave me permission to believe in myself because you are yourself. Brendan's always been a servant leader. He's always shown up with authenticity. He cares. He gives back. He doesn't hide who he is. He skips across stages with bands. Like, he just is this amazing leader. But the other thing is he's humble. And he stopped and he looked at me and he remembered that moment. And 5 years later, I was talking on a stage and I sent him that. We were beside each other. I said, look, this is where I started. You didn't even know me, but you stopped for me. And you waited and you had Denise with you and you gave presence. And if I could give one advice about Brendan, is he will give you the most unlimited presence in that moment. And I've been in rooms with him where we're making very hard decisions corporately and he won't even look at his phone for 3 days because he's in the moment and he's in the work and he's in the trenches. So as a leader, he's taught me to be omni but ever present and that no one is above you or beneath you. And he's worked with, gosh, you name it, he's worked with them. So that's been a real humility, surrendering, and the constant growth. He's still learning and he's still owning. And that's been my biggest takeaway from him is, and as I've learned and grown, and I'm now working alongside him and his companies and helping him build out his ambassador program for Growth Day, which is an incredible personal development app. If you don't know about it, it's phenomenal. He used it every day for 4 years. But, he's someone that I believe in and he's taught me more than I think anyone has in my life of how I want to live and be as a servant leader.
I think that's such a great point. I just want to recap that because I've heard this saying for a long time and it is 1,000% true that people don't remember what you say. They remember how you made them feel. And so when you're in your business or with your family or wherever, when you're present with people and you're there in the moment, people feel that. And when you're in a sales call, if you're prospecting for a new client or a new property or whatever, when you're just listening, people will remember that, like that you actually care. To me, that's everything. Like we can overcomplicate sales and all these tactics and you can learn NLP and all these things. And it's like, yeah, maybe, but at the core of it, do you care? Do they feel like you're heard? Because I'll let you in on a secret. People love to buy. They hate to be sold. People love to buy stuff. They love to spend money on stuff that they value. So you don't have to sell them that. What I found is typically people want things, but their rational mind tries to pull them back, right? So say it's investing with Kim in some type of coaching. I don't know what the price point is. Let's say it's $10,000, whatever for Kim.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to do that, but then they're like, oh, I don't know if I can afford it. I don't know if this is the right move. Oh, this is a lot of money, whatever. They want to buy. So it's our job to help them navigate that internal dialogue of like, yes, you're feeling your intuition telling you to do this. Here's why this makes sense. I understand it's uncomfortable, but that's because you're stepping into what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be growth on the back end of that, right? A lot of people are going to want to work with you as a listener on their property. Something's telling them to work with you, but there's something in the back of their mind of like, are they the right fit? Or what is it that's holding me back? That's your job to ask questions to figure out what is that roadblock for them and address those.
Yeah,
That's all that there is.
I agree. I think one of the things too is to help other people to see where they can go. One thing I believe that there are certain, and this applies to everyone that's listening. If you're in sales and you want to continue to, build out your business from such a rooted place, you have to remember as well is that, sometimes I think people want to be the hero. And they want to be the one that's like, let me fix everything for you. But at the end of the day, our job, specifically for me as a coach, is for you to figure out that you get to be the hero in this story and I get to be a really incredible guide. So, that's where I think a lot of this comes in with, even though you might be that best person for them, like Mike, I'm going to go into Airbnb, I'm coming to you, right? Like if I'm going to do that because I believe in you and I trust in you and I've been watching you and there's credibility there. But the other thing that's important, and I think you do this really well, Mike, just from what I've been watching from you, is the value you're giving is teaching people the skills to be making those informed decisions. So part of being a incredible salesperson and servant leader is also not having people feel like they're pigeonholed into, oh gosh, I feel like I was bullied into that. But they also have to have the sound mind of like, no, we're going into partnership with this. I'm going to learn from you. You're going to learn from me. We've got this going to be an amazing relationship. And it should be the start of like, there are people that never leave me with coaching. They've been with me for over a decade and they're like, I don't care what you're doing next. I'm coming. Right? The same thing with whether it be properties or whatever it is that you're selling or whatever course or whatever you're rolling out. How are you keeping people feeling so empowered but growing with you is such an important skill as a coach and as a sales human as well.
I love that. And I wrote that down, right? Like the idea of like, we're not trying to be the heroes. We're just the guide along the way, right? Like in the hero's journey, we're just the guy that tells you, like, look, this is what you can do. This is how I can help you. I've got to really enjoy getting to know you. And I love your presence on social and like how real you are. And we have had a couple shows lately where we talk to people about like, hey, like, how do you grow your personal brand? And I think anybody that has known you when they meet you, those two images really match. Similar with Mike, similar to me, right? Like we're not selling anything that is not us. And so if there's somebody listening to this now that maybe knows you or maybe doesn't know you and then sees you and is like, I want to be like him. Like I want to like just post like him and be comfortable like him. What was the process like? Like, was that easy for you from the beginning? Did it take you some struggles in terms of like doing the posting? Like, what does that look like?
Oh my gosh. I just want to thank Facebook Memories for the cringiest reminders of my awful start. So number one, we all have to start feeling like maybe scared or you will have cringe content. I just need to let you know, but it doesn't matter. You have to start somewhere. So and no one thought it was cringy. I just think it's cringy now when I look back at it because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so evolved, like rather than like kissing my cup of coffee because I love coffee so much. But that is who I am. So at the end of the day, I think my biggest recommendation, I would say, if you will, or offer would be number one, my biggest goal is to, when someone meets me in person, there's no dissociation from who I am on camera or in my stories and how you meet me. And that's one key thing. So when you're looking or you're talking on your stories or you're face to camera, I love this approach. If you look in your Insta stories or your face to camera, or you might be on your computer filming something or doing YouTube, whatever that is, whatever content form you're doing, I'm looking at YouTube, fine gentlemen, but right now I'd normally be looking at the lens of the Zoom or the camera. And my goal is to talk to my best friend. Because if I can talk, I don't look at myself when I talk. There's a lot of people that are like staring at themselves when they're talking, but if you can look at the little hole, picture the person you're talking to. And I do. I'm like, hey, and it gets me, actually subconsciously hits me because then I know it's not about me. This is about the person that I'm serving. This is about the woman or man that needs to hear that message on the other side. Because it isn't like, hey, if you're having this, and I'm totally mindset. I've walked through, I was listening to Jim Carrey yesterday, and he was talking about his traumas, and he was talking about how on film, it allows him to be someone different and step away from those traumas for a minute. And I don't even ever want to get into the layers of, you might look at me and think I've been swimming, but there has been times where my whole life's been on fire. And you just, you can get through that fire, but you don't have to share every single ember. You don't have to share every single fracture and break. You can still maintain, hey, I'm struggling through this, but here's something that you could really do. And here's 3 things that really help me. Right. So this is a way that I connect from like this subconscious perspective of, I've been on social for 10 years. I've been building my brand for 10 years. And everyone's come with me through the dips and the highs and the lows and the celebrations and all of it in between. So my offer to you is show the ups and show the downs and show the contrast, because nobody just wants to see you when you're winning. They want to know how you survive when you are barely hanging on?
I could talk about this all day.
Me too. I'm like, this is amazing, guys.
But I want to transition, and it will dovetail into what we just talked about. But I want to dovetail into leadership because, as we talk a lot about on this podcast around building a business, you know, people think it's just I'm an investor, like, well, no, the real estate doesn't just make you money. You build a business around the real estate, and a business includes systems, process, and people. I use the analogy of building your machine. The real crux of it comes down to finding good people and leading those people effectively. The thing that I see most people struggle with, and that I struggled with a lot at the beginning, is, and if you read books like The E-Myth, I mean, it just narrates what small businesses go through, where they hire people, they feel like they're not doing it as good as them, and then they end up feeling like they're working harder, and then they downscale, and they stay small because it feels easier than hiring and growing and leading people. So I would love to hear your take on how you've evolved as a leader, and then how you help coach people through a lot of the turmoil of being a leader.
I love that. The one thing that I often hear is that it's lonely at the top. And what I mean by that is, people and or leaders can have this perception that they have to be all of it. And, I actually learned this from Brendan. He said, if you're lonely at the top, you're doing it wrong. And I really appreciated that because I believe in connection and collaboration. And that is the one thing from a leadership, whether or not you have a team of 4 or you have a team of 30 or you have a team of 100 or whatever that is, the culture essentially and the organization and the peace in any establishment comes from the top, and it comes from how you lead you. And I believe that if you think that you can build your next million or next 5 million on a 5-year ago mindset without personal growth, self-growth, leading yourself, you'll never get there. You will spend so much of your day micromanaging everyone else where you are neglecting yourself so much. So that's a lot of what I work on with a lot of, high level executives, to be honest, Mike, where it's like, how well are you leading you? Because the ability for you to be able to see vision, like from a vision perspective, I'm a huge visionary. I have the ability to be able to see and scale like 5, 10 years out in a business, right? But the reason why I can do that is because I get so internal and I'm so locked in my work as a leader and as a high performance coach and executive leader that I'm so high functioning that the teams around me have to be that high functioning. So for example, my intimate team, we do work on, I check in on them with their wellness. I check in on them, how they're feeling. I check in on them literally. Hey, I bought some of my employees a walking pad because she's on her desk. So it's like, how are you investing back in your team from a leadership perspective where they feel that you care? They feel like you're connected to them. So that's one thing is number one is how do you actually connect as humans with your team? Number two, how well are you leading yourself? And number three, what does that look like from a results perspective? And if you don't have the ability to have the vision to cast that and have other people buy into what you're saying, I remember saying that my Sunrise Senior Living, the mission statement was on my forehead. Like when I worked for Sunrise, they had the ability, the owner, Paul Clausen, was the most highest level visionary I've ever experienced. And he had me for 8 years. I was a devout employee and leader wanting to change the culture because that was his mission. And he always said the best is yet to come. So when there is this leader and when you have this visionary leadership, whether you have a team of 1 or you have a team of 1,000,000, you have to be the one that takes care of yourself to be that visionary and to give yourself permission to lead and be unconventional and to be a little bit scary and raise the bar. So as you can do that through your leadership, not only are you inspiring other people, but then you also have to have that other ability to hold people to task and saying, hey, if we're going to do this, we're also going to do this. And results don't lie.
I'm trying to think of, because I am 100% in agreement with you. And I know for me, and I'm sure for some listeners, years ago, and I've been into personal development for a long time, but when I articulate why is this important, and when we talk about personal development, like, okay, but I don't understand, like, what does that mean? Like, how does this actually translate? Of like, that point that you made of, if you're a 150-year person right now, That's your income. And you want to get to a 5 million a year person. You will not be the same person at 5 million as you are at 150. But are there certain, if we got like nitty gritty, or find an example of like what would need to change, like in your thinking and how you operate and your standards to go from here to here? Because it's so true. I could give you the exact playbook on how to scale a massive real estate portfolio, but if you don't have it in here, it's never going to work.
Yeah, it's so true. The thing is, two things. So number one, your identity, it will always be evolving. We know that. We constantly are working on identity. We're constantly working on belief. But here's the thing. Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher, he said this one time. I love him. Yeah,
I love
he said,
Eric Thomas too.
it's so good. He said this, and he said, there's so many people that want to adopt. So for example, Mike, there's so many people that want to adopt your behaviors, but they're not adopting the mindset that is required to go along with the behaviors. So if someone were to do the behavior, but the mindset, there's an incongruence. It's that cognitive dissonance. I want to earn $1 million, but they're sitting there doing busy work versus income producing work. So it's really knowing that it's, is this a nice to have, or is this going to increase your business and your revenue? And I believe that, the way that how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you are becoming a sloppy business owner and you are putting off the tasks that are required, mastering the mundane is probably one of the most underrated skills of the most successful people I know. It is not fun to go work out. It is not fun to go answer your emails. It's not fun to do all those things, or, it's not fun to go do the sales process that we're still in process of. Well, I find it fun actually, but it's like for some,
Review your P&L every month, but you got to do it.
you got CEOs know their numbers. CEOs know their results. And if you're pushing that back, like this is it. You got to adopt the mindset, but the behavior. And I think that's the game changer right there is, are you willing to allow this identity of yours right now to die in order to have the doors open of the ones you're asking to open?
I still keep in touch with him, but I had a mentor a couple of years ago who was light years ahead of me. And he hit on that point that you just said. He's doing about 50 million at the time, 50 million a year. And he's like, a lot of the stuff that I do is just boring. It's the same meetings, looking at the same KPIs. And he's like, I just got comfortable doing the same things that drive the business forward, where most entrepreneurs, we test stuff, especially at the beginning, to like grow. And then it becomes ingrained in us that if I want to make more money, I got to go start more things. He's like, no, you got to focus and do the stuff that needs to continue to grow the business. Like showing up to the leadership meetings, reviewing your KPIs, training your team, reviewing your numbers, all the stuff that doesn't sound fun, but that's what moves the needle. It's not going around and, building out that furniture on your next property. That's not your highest and best use, ladies and gentlemen. I hate to break it to you. It might be fun. You might enjoy doing that stuff. You might enjoy like the designing aspect or whatever. That's cool, but that is not your highest and best use as a CEO of a business.
And you have to have the ability to be able to discern that. Like for me, I work from home, and it would be really easy for me to go fluff my guest room pillows, because I like that. I love having everything just, like I love when my environment is curated and awesome. However, I'm going to fluff my pillows at 8:00 at night. I'm not going to fluff my pillows in the afternoon when I know that I need to have these things done. And that may sound like a really ridiculous analogy, but it's true. A lot of us, especially if you're working from home, you're distracted. The dishwasher, the dishes, all those things. You have to become a master of your time. And also the one thing I would say that might be a really good tip, and I offer this a lot in my coaching clients, is do a 24-hour time audit and do it for a week. Audit your time. Like I'm talking even your shower, like all of it.
Thank you.
Include
I
it.
say this all the time, and I tell all the students, I make them do 2 weeks. But
Yes, perfect. I do a
I'm
week.
telling you,
Yeah, exactly. 7 days. I want a 7-day log. And then what I want to see is where all this white space is the mundane activities. You're now drilling that into your schedule. And the last thing I would add to that is, are your values, I love this one. Like I could do this all day long. Are your values reflective on your schedule?
Mm.
Are they? And that's a check. And then the third thing I'll say, Brendan said this to me. He said one time, give me your phone. I was like, he's like, Let me see your schedule, because I'll tell you what's in your bank account. I'll tell you what your values are, and I'll tell you how much money you have based on your schedule. Are you a CEO? If we were to look at your schedule right now and see what you did, and if we were to turn down the volume of your life for the last month, would we know what your focus is? Would we know? Because the ones that are getting after it are the ones that are doing the work and not just they're not talking about it all, they're doing the work. And it's not fun or sexy. And that's the best part. That's your $1 million minutiae, is being able to master the mundane.
I love that.
I would drop my mic, but I don't want to break it.
Yeah, it's true. That was such a mic drop moment. And I believe on that I think everybody that's listening to this always knows. You always know what is the next thing they should be working on. Like, you always know what is the next thing that's gonna move you forward. You know the next conversation, you know the next task, you know the thing that you're not doing.
And if you don't, get a coach that's done it. Don't stop wasting time. Like, that's such a pet peeve of mine. Elon Musk talked about it in his book, and I was like, I completely relate to this. And it drives some people that are close to me nuts, but I just have this maniacal sense of urgency all the time.
So that,
Like, if I feel like we're not moving the needle, it drives me insane.
I actually get irritated. Like,
Yes.
my husband Jamie is like, oh God, like if something's not working, I'm angry, and I'm working through that, because I'm like, we breathe and we don't judge. And then I'm like, could we please enhance the system immediately? Like, this link needs to be working. This, this call log needs to be working. Like, if you aren't, that's another thing I would add too on that end, Mike, is like, if you are not a CEO, that you're not going through the processes that you're expecting your end user to be going through, and you don't know that they're working, that's not a team problem. That's a leadership problem. You have to have time to make sure that the things you're putting out that are representing you is on brand. And you're proud of that. And that feels sometimes like, well, and I learned this lesson when I delegated out too much. And then I almost became a point where, not that I was incompetent, I'm very competent, but it became easy to say, well, actually, no, so I don't really understand that part, so I'm not doing that. And then I thought, if I'm teaching leaders and business owners how to scale to multiple 7 figures, I'm going to need to know, I'm going to want to have my finger on the pulse of the needle moving activities, and exactly that things are working the way it is. So try not to be too hands off and too much delegating as well, even though you don't need to be doing everything. Know your systems, know what you're asking people to do. And the last thing I'd say is, I will go plunge. Like, when I worked in senior living and there was a clogged toilet, I would be like, hand me the plunger. I wasn't going to go ask someone to do something that I'm not willing to do as the CEO and leader. So you have to be in the trenches and be in phase 1 every day, because if you're not, your team's not going to be there either.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big misconceptions that people have, even in starting their SDR business. Like, we're doing this to have freedom to be there for the important things. I know you have kids. I know you're very present with them. I know Mike is very present with them. And yet, we're not doing this to not work. We're doing this to spend the time doing our highest and best and supporting people to their best of our abilities in growing this business. But if your concept of where I'm going to work so somebody else can do something, so I can just be lazy, it's not going to click, because you're not going to care. If the goal is to be lazy, I don't think entrepreneurship is really the way for you. I'd rather you just work a job until it's retirement time, and then you actually get to be lazy. But this is not why we do it. Like, for me, it's a labor of love. So I love everything that I do. Like, I love this podcast. I love coaching. I love it. And I love also working on myself. Like, I am constantly clacking away to being like, okay, what am I fixing? Like, there's something's going to get better, even 1% better, right? Kim, I love this conversation. What is something that you're on your personal side? I know you do a lot of hacking. I think I got the mouth tape from you. Were you the person that told me to put mouth tape to sleep? Okay, yeah. I spoke to Kim not too long ago. She's like, I started using mouth tape to go to sleep, and it's amazing. So I started doing it. And again, you see, I'm constantly hacking. Like, I'm constantly looking at myself. I'm like, how can I get my sleeping score to be a little bit better, right? So what are some things that you are bringing into 2025 that are helping you kind of level up even your health, your energy, your
Yeah. Okay. Well, two things. So number one, I am not immortal and I need to remember that. Number two, I prioritize protein like it's my job. And I will come to meetings eating tuna if I have to, because I was used to be in the school of I underate because I was busy and I just forgot. And CEOs don't miss their meals. So that's the number one thing. We don't miss our meals. And if you have to schedule that you're eating, you do it. Number two, I have really stopped drinking alcohol because I love a glass of wine, but it does not love me. And if I, with the goals I have, I just have to be, I don't want to be out for 4 days. I don't want to not sleep well. Number three, I have made a really executive decision to stop buying all the things. And this is important for anyone that's listening that will, maybe you are someone that will go buy things, or you have retail therapy, or you're on scrolling late at night, you start making these purchases. I want to master my own self this year. And in order to do that, I have to do things that I've never done before, which is mastering my self-discipline, which is governing and being a steward of financial, physical, emotional, and mental stability. And what I mean by that is anything that is rocking my core foundation is out. And I'm just constantly observing that. And then the last thing I would say is we don't sleep underneath 6 hours. I have to have a minimum of 6+ hours a night. And that's been really helpful for me. And the way that I'm doing that is making sure that I'm not on my phone an hour before bed. And when I wake up in the morning, this is so hard for me, but I have to stop letting everybody else's needs become before mine. So I get me before the world gets me is my mantra, and it's really helping. So even if it's just half an hour, I get me before the world gets me. If that's grounding, prayer, movement, whatever that is for you, how can you bookend the end of your day and the front of your day for you? So you can have this guiding principles, you know your values, you're checking your vision, and then you get into the world.
So good.
Love
So
it.
good.
Kim, when can people find you, follow you? Where are you?
So we have a podcast called The Fitz Life Unfiltered. So you can find me over there on Apple, Google, Spotify. You can find me on Instagram at Kim Fitzpatrick. Our website is under construction because there is so much goodness coming this year with rebranding and new offerings coming and some really exciting things that I can't talk about yet. But I'm really excited. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Kim Fitzpatrick. Podcast is Unfiltered. So if you want some real life truths, you're going to want to go listen to that with my husband and I. And that's where you can find me. You can also find me at Legacy by Kim. I have a journal as well. So if you need some support in your morning routine or vision or dreams, that's a really good place to start.
Last question we ask all of our guests, and I would love to hear your answer, is what's your number one secret to success?
It's faith. Faith over everything. Love and faith. And that it's always working out for me in the greatest good.
Love it. Love it. Kim, thank you so much. Appreciate you. For listeners out there, hope you enjoyed that one. A lot of nuggets as far as personal development, leadership, sales. And we've been in mastermind together for a while. And I just love how she shows up and how she serves her community. And I've said this, when you get around certain people, you start to pick up on their energy. And I always feel better when I'm hanging around with Kim and listening to her speak. And I appreciate you jumping on here.
Feel the same way. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate this time.
Appreciate you,
Take
Kim.
care, everybody.
Ciao, guys.